thank you all so much for being here today and for joining us about this informational session about two funding doctoral studies opportunities within the special education unit in the College of Education at the University of Arizona. I want to start by just sharing, if you have any questions or comments, please just put it in the comments box, or you can wait until the very end of our presentation and ask your questions then. So we want to start with a land acknowledgement and a labor acknowledgement. So we respectfully acknowledge the University of Arizona is on the land and territories of Indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the O'odham and the Yaqui. Committed to diversity and inclusion, the university strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and Indigenous communities through education offerings, partnerships, and community service. We also remember that the U.S. is built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to this country from the African continent and recognize the continued contribution of their survivors. We acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented people who contributed to the building of the country and continue to serve within our labor force. Okay, so we are really fortunate to have two funding opportunities from the Office of Special Education Programs. So we have two grants that will fund a total of 8 doctoral students, 4 within each grant and program. So we each want to introduce ourselves as PIs, a part of each of the projects. So my name is Dr. Adai Tefera. I'm an associate professor of special education in the College of Education. My work broadly focuses on intersections of special education policy, race, and disability.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tasia Gonzalez. I'm an assistant professor of special education in this department. My research addresses issues of equity and inclusion for emergent bilinguals with and without learning disabilities by examining what they can do when pedagogies, practices, and policies seek to recognize, integrate, and sustain their cultures and voices. And next up is Dr. Lansey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Kirsten Lansey, and I am also an assistant professor in the Department of Disability and Psychoeducational Studies at the University of Arizona. And my research focuses on students with complex support needs and inclusion. So how we can change systems so that students with complex support needs and intersecting identities are able to be included in general education contexts along with their peers without disabilities. And next we have Dr. Leopson.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carl Leopson, and I am professor and head in the Department of Disability and Psychoeducational Studies. And I've been here for 22 years, worked with a lot of great people, and look forward to working with some of you. My area of interest and expertise is in applied behavior analysis and positive behavioral supports and function-based intervention. And now I will turn this over to Dr. Hong.
So my name is Sung-Ge Hong, an associate professor in DPS. My interest focuses in STEM education, Braille literacy, and assistive technology of students with visual impairments, and have been in the program for about, I think this is my 9th year being here in Tucson. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Dr. Tefera mentioned, we have 2 grant opportunities, which is really exciting. And so all of us who just introduced ourselves are the co-PIs or PIs or principal investigators for this first grant that we're going to talk a lot more about, preparation of culturally sustaining leaders in special education through apprenticeship learning. And then we have a secondary grant from the Office of Special Education Programs, and it's called Systems Change for Inclusive Education, a national collaborative effort for for students with extensive support needs, acronym Science ESN. And so Dr. Tefera and Gonzalez and I are PIs of this grant as well. And this is a cross-university grant. So there are also collaborators and PIs, principal investigators, from the University of Utah. So this grant will be preparing 8 doctoral scholars in total, 4 at the University of Arizona and 4 at the University of Utah. So the PIs at the University of Utah are Dr. Matt Jameson, and his research is focused on positive behavioral support and inclusion for students with complex support needs. And Dr. Sandra Stadenga, which she's focused on early intervention and systems change and implementation science. So we're excited to talk more about these grants with you.
So we're located at the University of Arizona. We are an Hispanic serving institution, or an HSI, which means that the Department of Education has given us the designation based on having at least 25% of our students who are Latina or Latino, Latinx. And so we have an HSI designation. We also have a number of cultural centers. We have the African American Student Affairs. We have the Guerrero Center, or the Chicano-Chicana Hispanic Student Affairs. We have a number of cultural centers, including the Disability Cultural Center, which is unique to the University of Arizona, and really aims to provide community space for those with disabilities, or for those who are interested in engaging in that space and learning about ableism and ways of accommodating and ensuring inclusivity on our campus. So it's a great resource that we have. We're a research intensive institution, which just means that we're designated as an institution with very high research activity. And we're also a flagship university, the first public university in the state of Arizona. So Arizona includes 22 federally recognized indigenous tribes. Tucson is only an hour from Mexico and 2 hours from Phoenix, so you have easy access to urban areas and also the border in Mexico. And we're also one of the sunniest cities in the country. We might also be one of the hottest, but the sunniness is one of the assets that our city brings. So Disability and Psychoeducational Studies is the department that the Special Education Unit is housed in. There are 4 units within the Disability and Psychoeducational Studies department. So our unit includes a doctoral program, and our doctoral program is focused on interdisciplinary perspectives and critical perspectives. We also have a master's program that includes applied behavioral analysis, deaf and hard of hearing, blind and in visual impairment, mild and moderate disabilities, and then severe and multiple disabilities. And we also have an undergraduate program that focuses on mild and moderate disabilities. So we offer undergraduate, master's, and doctoral program within our special education unit. So as Dr. Lansey shared earlier, we have these 2 wonderful grants, and there's some differences across the 2 grants, but one of the main aims is that we aim to increase the number of scholars of color, doctoral scholars of color, multilingual scholars, and racially diverse scholars and scholars with disabilities. So the first grant, the Culturally Sustaining Leaders in Special Education, is committed to developing doctoral scholars who are engaged in culturally sustaining kind of practices and evidence-based practices, and developing those research skills. And part of that just means focusing on the sort of cultural and linguistic assets of students with disabilities in the classroom, and learning sort of the research about culturally sustaining practices and evidence-based practices. So there are 4 competencies that we aim for all doctoral students who are funded through this grant to sort of learn. One, as I shared, was the culturally sustaining evidence-based practices. The second is developing rigorous and interdisciplinary research methods, so both quantitative and qualitative research methods, but also policy development and advocacy. The third is engaging in high quality teacher preparation programs. So we have really strong program directors, which I'll talk a little bit more about, that focus on different areas within our master's program, the mild, moderate, the severe, and multiple, for example. And then also advancing skills to become higher ed faculty. So we have developed the apprenticeship model approach to sort of learn those basic competencies and skills. So one of the apprenticeships is focused on a semester-long, high-needs school apprenticeship, which will be within TUSD, or the Tucson Unified School District, where doctoral students would work with their advisor, with the director of the special education department in TUSD, and really begin to put the skills that you're learning within your doctoral program into practice within a school, a classroom, to kind of think about those connections between research and practice. The second is a program director apprenticeship, where you would work alongside one of our program directors for a semester. And so the program directors are in the areas that I mentioned earlier within our master's program. So you would work closely with them to kind of learn about different ways of engaging in higher education. That includes directing one of those programs. The third is an external apprenticeship, and that could be at another university where you might want to work with a faculty member who has research interests similar to yours, but it could also be at a policy organization or education center. It could be at the state education level or local education level. But again, it's meant to think about ways of connecting your research or developing your research further with another scholar. And then the final apprenticeship is the mentor apprenticeship, where we would match you with a mentor that might be at the University of Arizona, but could be at another university based on your research interests. And this would be in addition to your advisor, so it would complement and enhance the support that you're receiving from your advisor as a way to further sort of get support and learn about different ways of engaging in academia. That's it.
Wonderful, thank you. So the second grant that we are talking about tonight is Science ESN. And again, this is a partnership with the University of Utah. And the focus of this grant is to prepare special education scholars for faculty positions with expertise in effective practices associated with systemic educational change toward equity and inclusion of diverse students with extensive support needs. So first off, I want to sort of explain what extensive support needs mean. And those are students who require support across multiple domains. So that might look like support with academics, with behavior, with communication, for example. These students often have disability labels of intellectual disability, autism, multiple disabilities, or deafblindness, and they might take the state alternate assessment. So when we talk about these students, they are most often segregated in self-contained settings or separate schools. And so really what this grant is preparing faculty to be change agents, to do research and teaching, to prepare special educators to really enact systems change so that students have opportunities to be within general education context. So that's really the intent of this grant. So there are 5 areas associated with systemic educational change that are really highlighted within this grant that you would gain as a scholar on this grant. So those 5 areas are equity and justice, inclusive education, leadership and policy, positive behavioral supports, and systems change and implementation science. So ultimately, what we have done within this grant is to develop 5 different seminars at both the University of Arizona and the University of Utah that really highlight and focus on these 5 different areas of systems change. So we have 10 national experts across the US who have expertise in these different areas, who are going to collaborate with us and support us in the development of these seminars focused on these 5 areas. They're going to be guest lecturing within these seminars, and you would be able to really collaborate and build your networks with these national experts, in addition to faculty from the University of Arizona and the University of Utah. So it's really structured so that you are able to build your networks so that you can collaborate moving forward as faculty members. And so within this structure, there's different experiences that you will have. And many of them are very similar to the first grant that Dr. Tefera just mentioned. So this includes a school-based internship. This grant is collaborating with Sunnyside School District. So you really implementing practical evidence-based practices to support systems change and students with complex support needs within Sunnyside School District. There's also a teaching and supervision internship. So you'll work to supervise students in various teacher prep programs, depending on what your interests may be. But that might be, for example, in the severe and multiple masters program. So you might teach in that program and support with supervision of those master's students, for example. We also have a policy externship, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later. But this is going to be an opportunity for you to do an externship with a state board of education, a national or state organization. And then built-in mentorship. So we have, again, these national experts as well as a mentorship program where you'll be able to have opportunities to not only receive mentorship from your advisor, and your committee members, of course, but also potentially one of the national experts and or someone else who may be in the field or within your specific area of interest.
So in terms of what the funding covers, so for the first grant, Culturally Sustaining Leaders in Special Education, you will receive 4 years of funding, and that funding would cover full tuition. It will include a living stipend that starts at $40,000 and then increases gradually over the 4 years based on cost of living adjustments. And then you would receive funding, annual funding, to support attending conferences, research conferences, where you might present your work, present on papers and research that you're conducting. There's additional individual need-based funding for expenses that might be unexpected or might pop up. For example, we have funding for parents and caregivers or emergencies or medical kind of needs. So we have allotted an amount of money to support sort of unexpected costs that might arise for doctoral students. As we shared earlier, there's apprenticeship learning opportunities that are part of the program, and then also courses that are focused on culturally sustaining evidence-based practices.
And similarly, we have very similar structures as far as funding and support goes for both grants. So it would be the same cover tuition, beginning of $40,000 per year for a stipend, the annual funding for conferences, and then also the additional individualized need-based funds. So they're very similar structured that way. So next I'm going to overview the course sequence that you would be taking if you attended the PhD program at the University of Arizona. And so our courses are sort of organized by different core areas. The first being culturally sustaining evidence-based practices in special education. So there's 4 courses really situated around that area that are also aligned with both of the grants' sort of core intents, which is equity and justice and special education, among other things. And then there's the second core, which is research methods. So this includes both qualitative and quantitative research methods, as well as experiences conducting research with a faculty member, as well as your dissertation. So this would be 2 semesters or for your 4th full year of dissertation work. So you would get experience across the board, qualitative as well as various quantitative methods such as statistics, single subject design, and others. And then the third core is related to personnel preparation. So on both grants and within our program, we do have externships at schools. As we mentioned, TUSD and Sunnyside School District are both collaborators on these grants, as well as preceptorships and college teaching. So you'll get experience teaching courses at the college level, and then student supervision within different master's programs, potentially undergrad as well. And then finally, core 4 is related to professional knowledge and career skills. So these are really learning the foundational skills of how to be a doc student and then how to be a faculty member. So we really embedded these courses within the program to ensure that you really understand the complexities and sort of that that non-spoken language, I guess, of what being a faculty member might entail. So what, your CV might look like and things like that. So there's courses embedded within the structure of our program that really support you in understanding those nuances. So in addition to this course sequence in the Science ESN grant, like I mentioned, we have those 5 seminars, and 2 to 3 of them will be at the University of Utah. So this will be a unique opportunity where you'll be able to take those seminars remotely through collaborating and learning from faculty member through the University of Utah, as well as the other grantees on this grant. So that's an interesting and unique opportunity for this grant as well. And again, opportunity to build your networks. And then also a policy externship. So this, again, is a national or state policy organization or education board that you would be able to collaborate with for a semester. So this could include the Higher Education Consortium for Special Education. There's also Cedar Center and CEC, which is the Council for Exceptional Children. So we have collaborators at the national level, and then also at the state level, we have collaborators with the Sonoran Center for Excellence in Disability, which is the USED here at the University of Arizona. Okay, so quick overview of the 4 years within the PhD program at the University of Arizona. So the first year you would be doing coursework, and you would be also doing your qualifying examination. So this is not what it would traditionally sound like in an examination, but rather it's a presentation of your scholarly writing. So this will likely be a presentation of a scholarly writing that you would do within your first semester. So for example, during one of your beginning courses. So you would present this to your committee as your qualifying examination. And then in year 2, again, coursework, but no exams that year. And then in year 3, you're going to finalize your coursework. So you have both semesters. And then there's also the comprehensive examination and dissertation proposal defense. And so the comprehension exam is a portfolio. And so again, it's not like a traditional exam as you would think of it, but rather it is a portfolio where you will ultimately document different experiences that you have done or products that you have developed throughout your 3 years. So this would include, in part, teaching a university course. You would submit a scholarly paper to a peer-reviewed journal. This would be preparing your CV or resume. You'd prepare a grant proposal. You could engage in research. So these are all part of what you would ultimately gain during your prior 3 years that contribute to this portfolio. And this is really important because it'll prepare you for faculty positions moving forward. And so really the intent is to have you gain these experiences and develop these products so that you are sort of prepared to do these future things in a future faculty position. And so that's why we have sort of transitioned that traditional model of a comprehensive exam to a portfolio instead. And then the dissertation proposal defense. So this is where you would propose to your committee members what you want to do for your dissertation. If it's approved at that time from your committee, then you would move forward with likely doing an IRB or an institutional review board for research with human subjects, and then move forward with doing your actual research during year 4. And then also in year 4, you would be writing up your dissertation. And at the end of year 4, you would be defending your dissertation to your committee. So student obligations for these grants, these are intended for students to start in the fall. So this coming fall, 2024. You have to be full-time students, which means that you are enrolled in at least 9 credits per semester. It might be slightly more than that, but it's a minimum of 9. It is an in-person commitment, although some courses are online. However, there's a lot of experiences and opportunities that occur in person. So that's an important component of both of these programs. We expect you and the funder expects you to finish within 4 years. So that is a criteria that we have as well for these grants, and if you're on these grants. And the funder, who is OSEP, or Office of Special Education Programs, requires that scholars who will receive funding are US citizens and that there is a service obligation. And so what that means, and I quote, "Scholars who receive funding agree to work in the field of special education or related services for 2 years for each year of support they receive." So if you continue in our program for the 4 years and receive OSEP funding, that means that you have to work at least 8 years within the field of special education or related service. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a faculty member. It just means you're in the field of special education. And this is separate from the institution. So it's separate from the University of Arizona in that you report that directly to OSEP and they track that. All right, so admissions criteria. We have a holistic admissions criteria. So we're really looking at multiple components, not just, okay, who has the best GPA, right? We're looking across the board at many different things. And so part of this thing, unfortunately, entails a $90 application fee. And what we're looking at is, or the criteria, I guess, at a minimum, is a 3.0 GPA for your master's degree. So a master's degree is required. We're hoping or looking for 3+ years of professional experience in special education or related field. You need to submit a CV or resume. Also need to submit technical or professional writing sample. So this could be a policy brief or a master's thesis or a research paper. It could be various different things. And then you'll have to submit a statement of purpose as well as part of the application. And we ask for 3 professional letters of recommendation, and at least one of those has to be from a faculty member. And then as we move forward, you may have an interview with a program faculty, which I'll talk a little bit more about on the next slide. Please note that the GRE for the University of Arizona and for this PhD program is not required. However, if you attend or want to go to the University of Utah, the GRE is required for the University of Utah. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so moving forward, we're kind of going to overview some next steps that we think might be helpful for you all as you move forward potentially with the application process. So first off, we suggest that you determine if you're interested in one or potentially both of these funding opportunities. We suggest that you explore faculty profiles on our website and email one or more faculty members whose research aligns with your interests to set up a meeting and talk about it. This will support you to better understand if there are faculty members with expertise that sort of align with your areas of interest. And also, I think it'll support you with developing your application and sort of likely be a stronger application. We also encourage you to apply to the special education program by January 15th if you want to be considered for grant funding. However, we will continue to accept applications after January 15th, but we highly suggest by the 15th. And then, like I mentioned on the previous slide, you may be invited to a Zoom interview, which would be approximately 30 minutes with faculty members to discuss your interest in the special education program, doc program, your research interests, and how your interests align with one or both of these grant opportunities, as well as program faculty, and then your background and how it's contributed to your preparation for this doc program. We will likely conduct interviews the week of January 29th. Okay. So before we open it up for Q&A, please know that you may have questions that sort of pop up in your mind later after tonight. So please feel free to reach out to any of the PIs, but Dr. Tefera and I are happy to take your emails about grant-specific questions. So send us an email if you'd like, but for now, what we're going to do is open up Q&A with the chat. So feel free to pop some questions in there or just unmute and we can have a conversation.